The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel as written to us by John. Jesus said to his disciples, "If you love me, you will keep my commandments. And I will ask the Father, and he will give you another advocate to be with you always, the Spirit of truth, whom the world cannot accept, because it neither sees nor knows him. But you know him. He remains with you. He is in you. I will not leave you orphaned. I will come to you. In a little while the world will no longer see me, but you will see me, because I live in you, and therefore you will live. On that day you will realize that I am in the Father, and you are in me, and I am in you. Whoever has my commandments and observes them is the one who loves me. And whoever loves me will be loved by my Father, and I will love him and reveal myself to him." This is good news from the Lord. So this Thursday we celebrate the Feast of the Ascension, and in that this, what I'm going to call Jesus map, comes full circle. Jesus comes forth from God, walks, and we'll try to walk through it a little bit, the classic human journey, what we all, in one way or another, have to walk through. He comes from God, he walks the journey, and returns to God. And this Feast of the Ascension is oftentimes overlooked because it's, I know I used to say it looks like rocket ship Jesus just heading upwards. And of course we know heaven isn't up there, but what's the imagery really trying to say? That if Jesus is the stand-in for all of us, the representative human being, he's telling us where we came from and where we're going to end up. We came from God, and just like him, we're going to return to God. So let's go through the whole classic human journey, revealed in the journey of Jesus. First of all, a conception in the womb of Mary that no one knows about. It's quiet, it's hidden. A divine child is born, who's a perfect combination of human and divine. Does that sound like you? It should, because that's what you are too. And your conception was probably equally hidden and unknown. Just happens quietly. And yet a life begins. And then he comes into the world not at the top of the heap, not president of anything, not a rich man, but deliberately born among the poor. In fact, in a stable where animals live. Talk about a symbol. God does not come into the world powerful, but comes into the world powerless. We call that Christmas. We decorate it so that we might not realize the scandal of the message. And then, he's largely unnoticed for 30 years, just like you and me. Most of us live rather uneventful lives. In fact, there's only one time it's mentioned when he's 13 and he goes to the temple seeking wisdom from the elders, and it seems the elders have no wisdom to give him, so he turns around and he teaches them a bad statement about religion, that sometimes it loses its own message. And he has to come as a 13-year-old boy and give the message back to the seniors and the viejos who don't know what the message really is. Then we hear nothing about him. Nothing. Till 30, he suddenly appears on the scene after an incident in the desert that we call his baptism. He's self-initiating because the guys in the temple didn't know how to initiate him when he wanted it. So he goes into the desert on his own. And there at the end of his journey, he hears a very simple message. You are my son. You are my beloved son. That's the initiating message. That's a message that all of you have to hear. Or beloved daughter, of course. But somewhere in your life's journey, you must know your belovedness. If you don't, you're not initiated. After that, nothing can stop him. And he heals and preaches and travels for the last 3 years of his life. And you'd like to believe that would be a success, but largely the Gospels are about people fighting him, opposing him, hostility. They want to control the belovedness of God by laws and requirements and temple rituals. And pretty soon they see this guy has to go. Because he's not telling us what we're used to hearing. He's not basing our love of God upon rituals and temple services and requirements. But it's a free gift, what Paul will later call grace. And this message of the God's free love is so unacceptable to religion itself that the scribes and the Pharisees and the high priests are the ones who want to kill him, along with Rome. So somehow he's a threat to both church and state, and he has to go. And they're both planning to kill him. This, of course, is the symbol for all of us. I hope we don't have to face it that badly. But there's few human lives that don't experience hostility, betrayal, rejection, abandonment, disappointment. Every one of you in this room could stand up and tell your stories. This is the human journey. It's never a straight line. It's always pushback. And everything else, what you're going to do with that pushback. Are you going to become a cynical, bitter, angry person, which frankly, it seems most of America is today? Or are you going to find that there's grace at the depths of everything? But you've got to go to the depths. And most people don't want to go there. But that's where Jesus went. If he is the treasure map, and I believe he is the treasure map, the way to walk to the treasure, then we shouldn't be surprised. And so he says, where I am going, you also will go. Last week he told you, in my Father's house there are many mansions. In other words, there's not one and only way to do it. There's many ways. And the only way is to be faithful to love. And that's his commandment. So when he says, if you obey my commandment, it's the commandment of love. He's not talking about the 10 commandments. Those are helpful. I hope you'll abide by them. But you can obey all the 10 commandments and never love for 1 minute. Let me repeat that. You can obey all 10 commandments and never love God or yourself or your neighbor for 1 minute. Jesus' great commandment is love of God and love of neighbor. But be warned, it got him killed. And so when the pushback comes in your life, whatever it might be, know, as even the Buddha said, suffering is part of the deal. Suffering is part of the deal. Don't be surprised. Don't look like our president does for somebody to blame. There's nobody to blame. It's part of the deal. And when it happens, it's how do you find God in it? That's the only meaningful question. Now, what gives you hope is that crucifixion did not end in crucifixion, but resurrection. And now this Thursday we celebrate ascension. You come full circle. You came from God. You'll return to God. And the only question at the end is, how much did you love in between?